Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Now, we had a huge month in the world of Grace and Grit last month. I offered 3 masterclasses called Women's Health Reimagined, which a lot of you showed up for, so thank you to all of you who participated. And then we opened and closed the doors to the Rumble and Rise membership site. And I am so excited to get to know all of you who joined that community. Now, today, I have a special guest for you. I have invited my dear friend, Hilary Hendershott, to the show. And Hilary specializes in something that can be a hot topic. It can trigger a lot of stuff for people. I know it does for me. And it's something that greatly influences our health. What is it? It's financial health. Our management of money or lack thereof can greatly influence our health. And why is that true? Well, because health is really your ability to manage all the things in your life that create stress in your life. And finances can massively impact our mental stress load, our emotional stress load, and it can influence so many decisions in our life that directly impact our health. So I can think of no better person to come here and talk to us about financial health. Hilary Hendershott, a lot of you were initially introduced to if you attended the Confident Women Rising Summit back in April. And a lot of you did not participate in that event and may never have heard of her before. So I'm going to read you a quick little snippet from her bio. Hilary is the founder of Hendershott Wealth Management, a leading financial advisory and wealth coaching firm for women and couples, where her mission is to motivate people to be financially empowered. Hilary is also the host of Profit Boss Radio, a weekly podcast where she and her guests offer inspiration and actionable advice to support women in their financial journey. I am so excited for this interview, so let's dive right in. So Hilary Hendershott, welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here for the second time.
To have you, right? I was just thinking, I was like, okay, we just did the Confident Women Rising Summit back in April. Yeah. You were a smashing success. I keep hearing about your contribution to that event. And then I was thinking, how have I never had this incredible woman on my podcast? And here you are. So I'm excited today to talk all things money and financial health with you.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start with what you do.
Okay. So you could say I'm traditionally trained as a financial advisor. So I'm a certified financial planner and I run a fee-only fiduciary financial planning firm. And what those F words mean is that my clients never pay commissions. And so what that does is it aligns our incentives and our relationship with the client. So I don't have any proprietary products to sell. I don't sell insurance. And I don't actually, I can't even take a referral fee if I were to send someone to an attorney or an insurance person. So my clients can just really be confident that everything I do is in their name, is good for them, everything I recommend for them. So that's what those words mean. And then I had this life experience about 8 years into my now 21-year career. I was literally advising multimillionaires during the day on their investment portfolios. So being a stock market expert and coming home at night to a stack of bills that I wouldn't pay because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
That whole thing came to a head. I really let it spin out of control. The financial crisis came. I had massive debt. I had a leased BMW. I had credit card debt. I had student loan debt. I had a condo that I had borrowed $430,000 on that in Silicon Valley went from $430,000 of value to $190,000 in value. So I had all this debt and no real estate to justify it. And it was just a horrible financial situation. And when my income declined, of course, I couldn't pay my bills. I had no money left. I had emptied my retirement accounts and the whole deal. It's just sending good money after bad. And I finally just had my rock bottom moment, as it were, when I pulled that BMW into the gas station and could not get a tank of gas and had to walk home because my credit cards were maxed out and my bank accounts were empty. And so, to make a long story short, obviously that situation finally broke me open when I was not able to keep the plates spinning. I had to just really humble myself and get really honest with myself and the people around me about what I had been doing. And it sent me on this introspective journey. And what I really learned, because I have a degree in economics, right? I'm a certified financial planner. I have an MBA. I used to tutor the math portion of the SAT. Like, I have a head for numbers. So I knew it wasn't like an arithmetic problem.
Right.
It wasn't like I didn't know how to do the math to balance my checkbook. That was not the problem. What I learned was about money psychology and neuroscience, and how important it is to manage or be strategic about what we say about money. Because I had some really broken money beliefs, and they just came from stuff I made up when I was a kid. And most of you who are listening are hopefully starting to resonate, because we all have money beliefs. And just the very fact that we all have different money beliefs should tell you that none of our money beliefs are factually true. Like, money isn't a thing. It doesn't have any nature. It's literally a sort of system that we human beings abide by consistently. Like, your cash isn't money. Credit cards aren't money. Money doesn't actually exist. A lot of people say it's energy, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that definition. I say money is an agreement. Money is a promise that you make, that a promise that I can trade you now for something that you can trade that money later for something you want. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? But we're all basically nuts about money. And I had made up when I was a kid, because my mom was a great saver and she didn't want to buy me brand name high tops so I could play on the high school basketball team, that we were poor. And I said, there's never enough money. And then, of course, it was true. And by the way, I was making six figures in Silicon Valley during the dot-com boom. I was working as a high-tech recruiter, and I was making 120 and spending 150. It was like, no matter how much money came in, I had to spend more, because I had to have the statement, there's never enough money, be true. I had to make it come true in my life. Imagine if I was bringing in 120 and spending 90, now there would have been enough money and I would have been in cognitive dissonance. There would have been conflict there. And this is really counterintuitive. And, there's other money, what I call money operating systems. Money is the root of all evil. If I'm good, the universe will provide for me. There's always enough money. Money makes you powerful or sexy or attractive, right? There's all these kind of beliefs that people abide by. And, until you get conscious about how you think about money, it really rules your financial life. So I was able to put my money operating system in the background and create empowered financial systems in the foreground. And I rebuilt everything. And today, about a decade later, I am actually financially independent. So I'm running $1 million business. And so everything about my financial life is totally altered. And I'll tell you, human to human, I will never, ever forget what it felt like to not be able to buy a tank of gas. Yeah. And I won't, for 2 years, I didn't buy a cup of coffee. Right?
But that's probably what makes you so great at what you do, is that it was so real to you, and you are so in touch with what that feels like and what that looks like and how to get yourself out of it.
Yeah. And I'll never forget what it felt like to dug myself out of it. And now part of my business, I coach that. So, a lot of my financial planning clients don't need money psychology coaching, right? They've got a couple $1 million and they're high powered executives, and that's all fine and good. But I also offer this coaching program to make manifest these lessons that I've learned, because I look out and I don't see many people teaching it in a learnable way. And so, we're making a big difference with people. By the way, just so you know this, the coaching can work for other people. We ran a program several years ago where 9 women completed it. And over a 24-month trajectory, we raised their net worth by $1.5 million. So $166,000 each. It was pretty good.
So good.
Yeah, it's fun.
I like those kinds of returns. Yes, yeah. It's wonderful. Well, I think listeners today are just going to be nodding their heads because we talk about so many of the same things on this podcast in terms of all your beliefs are recycled thoughts. Your thoughts will look for evidence for themselves, and you will create results in your life to prove why your thoughts are true.
Thank you for speaking my language, girl.
Yeah. And the diet industry is like one of the real shortcut ways to try to change, get a different result, but you're not really doing the real work, which is you have to change your belief system. You have to change how you think about yourself and about food and exercise and all the things. And so I love every time I get to interview you because I know you think and teach in so many of the same ways. And I also want to say that this conversation is very timely because we just finished a masterclass called Women's Health Reimagined. And in that class, we talked about health being multifaceted and that health is so much more than physical. It is mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's all these other things. And your mental and emotional health drastically influences your physical health. And
Yes.
Money's got a lot to do with your mental and emotional health because the stories you tell yourself can really disrupt those waters.
Yes.
And create a lot of unnecessary hormonal stress in the human body. So on that,
you know more than I do about cortisol, but I know cortisol is bad.
Yeah. Well, it's good to a point. It's like anything in small doses, it's beautiful. But when we are constantly pushing it out because we're making up stories in our head that may or may not be true, in many cases they aren't, we're creating all this unnecessary suffering because of the stories we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
So on that note, it is an irrefutable fact that our wealth and our health are very much related. There's a lot of research to support this. And I would love to hear just from you some of the ways that you have seen money influence your own health and even the health of your clients.
Well, I think it's two-pronged. So first of all, when you don't know how you're going to make rent or if you're going to be able to pay your credit card bill or your mortgage, and especially if you have being a homeowner or being able to pay those bills tied up with your self-worth, the amount of stress and anxiety that you're under is like you're in an emergency state at all times, right? So you can't sleep, which negatively impacts health. You can't think long-term. You can't be present in a conversation, which might impact, you being able to keep your job or be really fully in a relationship. So when you're in that fight, flight, or fright state, it's terrible. And if you're in it extendedly, of course, you're just aging yourself, right? You're sort of health-wise sort of circling the drain. And then there's the other factor of what you can pay for that helps your health. I have $100 a month addiction to athletic greens. And and who can pay $100 a month for athletic greens? Well, people who have money, right? And I'm not saying there's no other way to get a good multivitamin selection into your body, but it's a good way. Yeah. And we also pay, if I go to the doctor, and now we're on an HMO through my husband's a professor at the university. And there are a lot more things that doctors don't cover now. And I can just put my credit card down and say, no, I can just pay out of pocket. It's actually fine. It's not a big deal. Right. And of course there's the gym membership, or now I'm having to pay $100 for a pair of 20-pound weights for my home gym. Cause
I like hearing this. Yeah.
It's premium pricing for home gym equipment during the pandemic.
Of course. Dumbbells are shortage right now, for sure.
They really are. Anything home gym, you can charge a premium on. So, and I think it's the same thing for my clients who can look out into the future, because certainly as you age, and I mean, I think this is different for everyone, but certainly as you age, health gets more expensive. Things start to go wrong, right? No matter how well you take care of yourself, at some age, your body starts to give out a little bit or a lot at a time. And having the confidence, I would say that being able to pay for healthcare is one of my clients' absolute top concerns. Politics or public policy aside, no one is 100% sure how they're going to pay for the healthcare that they need in their aging years. And that remains a topic of concern for people. And so having the peace of mind of when I'm able to say to someone, no matter what comes, I have every reason to believe you're going to be able to pay for it, is a really nice thing. It's an area of life you don't have to worry about anymore, right? I mean, they interviewed senior citizens, and senior citizens report some of their top concerns are that they'll become a burden to friends or family in the future, right? Because they'll have a health event and they won't be able to pay a healthcare provider or an assisted living facility. So I think these are big questions for people. And certainly, there's a philosopher whose name I'm not going to come up with, but he presented this idea, and I'm sure you probably talk about it on your podcast, but there are distinct areas of life, and whether you ignore them or not, they're present. So there's your physical body, there's your spirituality, there's your relationships and your community, your education, your career, and money. And no matter what you think about money, it is a system we have to live in as human beings. It is how we live right now. And if your money life doesn't work, fundamentally, this philosopher would say, according to this model, you can't have a truly fulfilled life. That it's up to us to tend and curate all those areas of life so that we can be fulfilled human beings and be fully present in the world. Sometimes I talk and I feel like I'm stepping on your ground. So tell me.
No, please. There's so much synergy, and that's what I love. And that's why I host you on this show. Some things that came to mind as you were talking too, is I work with a lot of women who may be in really unhealthy relationships, but they can't leave because of finances.
Ugh,
I have women who live in homes that have mold in the walls that are affecting their health tremendously, and they can't afford to have it repaired. Another example is just, people want to leave jobs that they're super dissatisfied in, but they don't feel financially secure to take that risk.
Yes.
So really, there's not an area of our life that it doesn't affect.
I don't think so. I think money really, to an extent, solves problems. Mm-hmm. And, I've got a colleague right now who she's in exactly that situation. She's in a marriage where he hasn't worked in 10 years and it's not okay with her. But, in the state of California, if she divorces him, she'll have to pay him. Because she's the only one who's working, So she's financially stuck, and it breaks my heart when that happens to people. And I remember the day I realized that I wasn't financially stuck anywhere anymore. I was like, I did the numbers and I thought, no matter the outcomes, I'm all right. Mm-hmm. And it's like such a breath of fresh air. It's like, after having lived under stress and anxiety and insufficiency for so long, it's like, now I can think about other things, right?
It takes up a lot of bandwidth to worry about money.
It does. And most people end up resenting people who have wealth.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, I deserve some of that, or kind of thoughts. It's painful. It's painful for everyone involved.
So what do you think are some of the big roadblocks for women really taking responsibility for their finances, like really cleaning up the mess? Because I know that I'm assuming a lot of your clients, what's the age bracket of most people you work with?
35 to 55.
Okay. So we kind of have the same kind of age group of client. And I think, and I know we talked about this in the summit, but often when a woman gets to a certain point in her life, it's almost like there's so much shame or so much guilt for not have taken care of it earlier, that I could see that being a huge barrier. But I'm sure there's others.
Yeah.
I mean, you see this all the time.
I see all kinds of them. And I think one of the things I do that really helps is we're very upfront about, we say, this is a judgment-free zone. I mean, I just told you about my biggest financial mess. And, I say, no matter where you are, I either have been there or know someone who's been there. And it is all good. We had someone in my course last year, and she just was devastated. Just the amount of tears that came before she shared what she shared. I thought this is going to be a really big deal. She said her bank allowed her to have a $1,000 overdraft, and that for 10 years she had been living on overdraft, that she would be 700 negative, 1,000 positive, 500 negative, 200 positive. And, she shared this like it was I don't know, like she was a serial killer or something. I said, honestly, I've seen a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
I said, I don't think that's that shameful, but I think truly shame, people are embarrassed. They really don't know. So it's akin to, I have to step on the scale every time I go to the doctor. There's nothing I can do about it, but you can avoid getting on that proverbial financial scale for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, if I didn't have to, I wouldn't get on the scale fully clothed with my purse and my kid, right?
Having just eaten and had a bunch of water.
Right. And I'm at the point in my life where I no longer make those excuses to the nurse who's writing the number on the clipboard, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think you don't have to reveal your finances. And we have a culture that says, oh, it's private. So it's okay.
That's such a big part of it. Yeah, we don't talk about it.
We don't. And that's one of the first things in my masterminds that we do is we just reveal. And I invite you to share as much with the group as you're willing to share. I mean, I know their numbers. I'm not going to share them on their behalf, but there is a power in authenticity and vulnerability and just opening up the kimono, just saying, this is what it is. The facts are the facts. I don't love this phrase, but it is what it is. And so the more you can just get to peace about what it is, then you have power about changing the numbers, right?
It's that awareness, that level of awareness.
Yeah, we had a couple we worked with one time, combined income, I think close to $400,000. So 2 engineers in Silicon Valley, and they just were spinning the plates of debt. And she couldn't figure out, they were paying interest and she was limited because of the limits on some of the cards. And so she was just moving debt around. And she finally got to she said, look, I'm an engineer. I don't know what I've done wrong, but this is more than I can handle. And she came into the course and we had her paying off debt at the rate of, I think, $75,000 a year, like before we were even done with the program. And it was about putting it all in one place, organizing it, understanding what the interest rates were, and getting them on a payment plan that had them decreasing the debt and not taking more on every month. Because that was part of the problem is she would make the big payment and then they would go over budget, that month. And it was shameful for her in the beginning, but I think not by the end of the program. I also, I think some more deeper seated psychological things go on. So especially for people who come from money can be very complicated if there's a lot of money, and it can leave people with very dysfunctional habits with money. Mm-hmm. So I've worked with people who literally spent years of their life flying on private jets and who, may own a house outright, but can't seem to pay off their credit card bills, right? Because it's just, they can't have it be a clean slate. They can't have it be organized and I's dotted and T's crossed because of how they grew up about it. And so it's a matter of, akin to a little bit of what you do or have done, like a physical training. If you put someone's body in a certain position again and again and again, repetitive, they're going to have the muscle memory about it. And that's part of what we do too, is we literally say to people, and I hear from people a lot, I wish someone would just tell me what to do with my money. So we do that too. We teach people. So we give them a specific plan that makes budgeting unnecessary. So I use this plan called automation, which you could compare to an irrigation system in the garden. So the little hose takes the water to the flower pots where it needs to be. In the similar way, you can have monthly account transfers, take your money to the accounts where it needs to be. So for taxes, for profit in your business, if you have one, for paying your overhead and bills, saving for your kitchen remodel or your next car, and then one spending account. So you divide the money up that way and you bucket it, and then you only spend from the spending account, and it's super clear how much you can spend right now today, standing at the cash register, at that store when you find the purse you really want to buy and you look in that account and it says you have $100 and you say, okay, my purse budget today is $100. I've got another $1,000 coming into this account on Sunday. So I'm going to put this purse on layaway because I really need that $300 purse, right? Or whatever it is. But you just have to honor that system. And then you can never overspend. So people love that system. And then we teach them how to tweak it. And then by the end of the time we're working together, they're definitely in control of it and being responsible for it. And by the way, taking responsibility is actually a core piece of what I talk about on the first day that we work together when I lead groups. Is like, you're not a victim. Yeah. Stuff happened in your past. It's not happening anymore. And this work is only going to work if you take full responsibility for your results.
Yeah. And you lean into developing some new beliefs because your old beliefs only got you here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what I hear when you're speaking about all that too is just a lot of habit. We're so rooted in those habits of the way that we operate with money that a lot of times we're just doing it completely subconsciously.
Muscle memory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Muscle memory all the way. So on that note, I do want to talk a little bit about just consistency, because this is something that you talk about as well, right? There's consistent, you mentioned it with those systems. There's certain things that need to happen in a consistent way in order for you to sort of compound benefit over time. And so those systems, I'm imagining, are a big piece of that. What else would you say about consistency in terms of things that would be a linchpin to helping people be more consistent?
So I'm a big fan in setting systems up and never touching them again. Mm-hmm. So I'm not good hot in the moment. I will make the decision to have that extra glass of wine or spend those extra few dollars if I haven't already made the decision to make that not an option for me.
Love it.
And so this automation that I'm talking about, for many years for myself, because I didn't have the responsibility, I didn't trust myself with money. I carried only a debit card. And some people do complain to me about this and they say, well, debit card could get stolen. Okay, but I've never in my 21 years as a financial advisor had someone have money stolen out of their bank account that the bank did not return to them. Okay, and I would just make a habit of getting a new debit card every 90 days so that the number would change and I would see my bank account transactions every day. So anyway, let's just put that aside. I carried around a debit card only, and then I had my little app so I knew how much money was in that account. And so physically, I took away my own ability to overspend. I did not have a credit card. That was it. I had no wiggle room. And if I screwed up, there was nothing. I didn't have any loans or extra cash, right? It was like, okay, Hilary, there's no other option. And they say the root word of decide is the same as suicide and homicide, but it means to delete the alternative, mm-hmm. Right? To kill something off.
Yeah.
And that was what it took for me. So 2 years I did that until I trusted myself with a credit card. And now I have like 17 credit cards. It's ridiculous, but they get paid off every month.
Yeah.
Right.
It reminds me, I teach something similar called padding the environment, because if you go into the kitchen and there's a bag of chips on the counter and you haven't eaten in 6 hours, like, of course you're going to eat the whole bag. Who wouldn't, right? With 2 hands, just shovel it in. And so padding our environment is really setting up systems like that to make mm-hmm. sure that we are living in alignment with what we say we truly want. Yeah. And I love that idea because we make it so easy to spend money. Spending money is so easy.
I know. It really is. And I had to exchange the joy that I used to get from buying things. It's weird to say, but it's honestly true. I now actually get it from saving. So whenever I get a big check or some money comes from the sky, I get a check in the mail, my first thought is, how much of this can I save? Yeah. And that was not the case. It used to be, I wish it was more because I've already spent this and 2 times that amount in my mind on other stuff. But, and I think when you can make those kinds of changes, and that gets into the field of neuroplasticity. So really understanding your biological organism and how to change your brain. And you've all had mindsets in the past that you no longer have, or beliefs in the past that you no longer have. And that's an example of neuroplasticity, but you can program neuroplasticity by putting yourself in a consistent environment. And I think that's why my program lasts 7 months is because it works. Because you need to hear my voice and see this messaging consistently from me until your voice takes on my voice.
Yeah. You have to give yourself that practice time, right? Practice more than 21 days or 30 days or a few weeks. And I hear in what you've created, there's such an incubator of support for that. Right? Yeah. Showing people the path of less resistance and creating more results, and so much coaching on this money psychology piece.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on the parts where you can raise the roof. So if you own a business, having an expansive money mindset allows you to grow your business infinitely, right? Because bringing more money in makes taking more income home a lot easier, right? And as soon as you've got an abundant mindset and you begin to not be constrained by those old messages and old thoughts, your mind is a powerful moneymaker.
Yeah.
And there's nothing fundamental about any one of us that means we should be limited financially. So that's kind of what I come to the table with. And, I don't think it's my job to think of profitable ideas for your business. I think it's my job to set your mind free so that you think of profitable ideas for your business, right? And we have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. And this is such a relevant conversation, I think, in today's world, especially because more and more women are going into business, right? Running businesses, and business can so easily run you. And financially, especially, because we're just trying to keep our head above water and there's more and more money going out all the time. And so I'm curious, what are some of the big challenges you see women business owners making?
Let me step back for 1 second to the conversation about how your business can eat you alive. And that's actually something I talk about for a good couple minutes on the free training that we're actually going to talk about today, is how business owners need to think about your business. Your business is it's almost like this ulterior organism. I don't want to use the word enemy because it's not your enemy, but it only eats two things: time and money. And until you're bringing in money to feed the beast, it's your money. And until you hire people to feed the beast, it's your time, right? And so you have to really set up systems that keep yourself and your health and your physical person outside your business. Otherwise, it's the definition of being overworked and underpaid.
Yeah.
So to talk about mistakes that people make, what I see is that, especially for women, I see people being unstrategic about their business. They go into business and it's like, well, I have this skill set. I have this thing I like to do. Let's just sell as much of it as I can. Mm-hmm. And let's take kind of the worst, there's nothing wrong with being a photographer, but it's the quintessential business where you take a hobby and turn it into a business. Mm-hmm. And you're not thinking about how much do I need to earn to do what I want to do in life. You've taken your hobby and made it your work. So now you have to work every day and you can never take a vacation, mm-hmm. right? Because you have to be the physical photographer on site taking those photos, right? Sure. So I really just invite people to think with the end in mind. You have to understand what kind of business you have. Is it a business that's going to be profitable while you're running it? Is it a business you can sell? Are you running it like you're going to sell it? We need to think through these things. You won't be running your business forever. So let's start with the end in mind and kind of author it from the future back to today. So I would really like to see people being more strategic. And I do talk about that in this training that we're talking about. And also the fear of paying yourself. It is just so limiting for people that people think of money as an object to be spent or kept. So they think I can either have this dollar in my business and invest in my business, or I can pay myself. And they're so sacrificial. It's like, I'll just give, I'll give. And they don't realize that putting the demand on yourself and your business that it pay you and pay you well and it support your family and invest in the business, it just opens up your entrepreneurial mind. As soon as you unleash that expectation on your business, you will be surprised how many opportunities, profitable revenue streams, partnerships, new markets that come into your vision, right? Because you have this expectation. Look, I need to make $100,000 a year, and this business has X amount of revenue, and I need to pay Y to my employees. So we need to make $700,000 a year. I just made that number up. Sure. But it's like, what if you started with that thought, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's really where I go to work with people first.
I love it. Yeah. I was thinking about when you said, the hobbyist turning in, their hobby into a business.
I know. I don't want to offend any photographers, but.
No. And honestly, my husband and I talk about this all the time because we both went into fields that we just love, they're our passions. Right.
Yeah.
And he's a builder, and obviously do my thing, health coach, personal development, whatever you want to call it. And it's interesting because we never actually pursued the education early on in how to manage money and how to build businesses. right? Because that's not something that's necessarily stressed. It's like, well, if you're good at something, you can create a business out of it. But there's a lot of structure underneath that that's required to support the beast, like you said. So it's not ruling you and it's not wearing on your health.
Yes, exactly. Because if you do it wrong, then it comes back to bite you.
Of course.
It can be a big deal, right?
Yes.
I mean, I see people, I once met a man who had never paid himself out of his business because he didn't want to pay income tax on it. So he had, I think, $4 or $5 million in business bank accounts. Well, he had a creditor come calling and a lawsuit and lost everything.
Oh.
Right? And it's like, that was totally unavoidable, totally unavoidable. And it just is, there are things that people, they get mindsets about, they get to thinking, oh, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this, or I need to avoid this. Taxes. If you're going around life and your goal is to avoid taxes, guess what? Income comes with taxes. So if you're avoiding taxes, you're also avoiding income.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's not a fruitful end. You really need to think about what are your goals, because avoiding taxes is not one of your life goals.
It's not a way to live life. Yeah.
No.
Oh, this is awesome. Well, on this note, let's talk about the 7 ways business owners can transform a revenue into personal wealth.
Yes. So this is my passion, and this is what I really want to train people in. It's a free, approximately 1-hour training. You can get it by going to hilaryhendershott.com/grace and grit. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 3 most expensive money mistakes I see entrepreneurs make and how to avoid them. Also, the 3 most profitable habits that I see in the entrepreneurs that I work with. And of course, the 1 commitment that I think you can really step into now that can have money just completely be an area of life that works for you. And so again, that's totally free. And I hope that you'll check it out. It is a prelude to my upcoming wealth coaching course, which is called the Wealth Multiplier course. And so I'll be inviting you to check that out as well inside the training. But again, the training's totally free.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and we will put the link on the page where this podcast is found, and I will be sprinkling it on all the spaces and places.
Thanks.
You're amazing. I think this is such a robust conversation, and I really appreciate you coming here and talking about it. And I know it's something outside of what we ordinarily talk about on this podcast, but as I hope we made the point clear at the beginning, wealth is just so closely linked to health. And I know that this is something that so many people rumble with. And so I'm just so grateful that you were willing to come in and talk about it. And provide us with this free training. Yeah.
I really put my heart and soul into this thing. I hope you enjoy it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story. And it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort. And with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.